6 Radio, your show for all things positive. Hello and welcome to K-Wave 6 Radio. This is Kirk Spencer, your host. Tonight we're going to be talking about cognitive dissonance. For those of you who don't know what cognitive dissonance is, let's do this from the dictionary. 2 words, cognitive, of or relating to the mental process of perception, memory, judgment, and reasoning, as contrasted with emotional and volitional processes. Dissonance means a simultaneous combination of tones, conventionally accepted as being a state of unrest or needing completion, or that's for music, but for our purpose, it's an unresolved discordant chord or interval, or a disagreement or incongruity, which basically just means, in short, as we understand it, cognitive dissonance is if you have a belief or you have some knowledge of something and somebody comes along and presents some information that goes against what you already know and or believe, your mind tries to rationalize it. Now, some people go into a denial. Other people will listen and they will say, okay, explain what you're talking about. And it creates that discord in your mind, in your beliefs, and you either check it out and say, okay, this makes sense, or no, it doesn't make sense. I'll give you an example, and I'm going to use today's expressions or our present-day situations. Many people think that Islam is a religion of warring people. Well, even today, we hear of people that are, because of ISIS, okay, as we all understand ISIS to be the radicals in Islam, it is causing the leaders in Islam to say, hey, we need to defeat these people because they are not translating, if you will, the information that is truly Islam. Because before, let's put it this way, there are people who live Islam and they are very peaceful people. And then there are those who want to take it and go the radical direction, which is where we're having an issue with Islam a great deal. But then again, we use Islam as the example, but there have been radicals in just about every religion and or denomination, and they usually cause the problems. And we look at these people and we say these are representatives of that particular religion and or faith or belief or denomination, however you want to use that. And we tend to say, okay, these are the representatives of that religion. But as one person put it, and her name is Bridget Gabrielle, I believe her name is, this one recording that she did, and you can find this on YouTube, where there is a Islamic student at a university who got up to ask the question about Islam, and the question was, or the seminar was about Benghazi. And Gabriel said, hey, listen. Hey? Hold on just a moment. Somebody's calling me. Hello? Hello? Okay, I'm on a show here, so please go to the show. Thank you. Okay, sorry, I had a phone call come in. Okay, I believe my guest is trying to reach me. If you're listening, just call in on the number 347-677-0812, or just call in by the Skype icon. We may end up opening the lines. The chat room is open if you're interested in contacting us during the show with any questions and or comments. But getting back to Bridget Gabrielle, she says, people that are peaceful. There were peaceful people in just about every war that we've had, and she used Nazis, for example. He says the Nazi Party was not the majority of Germany at that time, but the peaceful people said nothing. They did nothing, and when it came about to being when it came to sound their voices, they did not sound their voice, so we had World War II. So the peaceful people did not say anything. So what we ended up having was a war. But people don't want to see that. So we look also at present-day Israel. Now, some people are still going, yeah, you need to give that up to the Palestinians. Well, even Japan asked, if you were the original people of that land, where is your history? Where is your coins or money of that time? Where are your artifacts to say that you were in that land before and all of this? But there are people that are so imbued in hatred that they do not want to hear this. They would rather hold on to the beliefs of, yes, the Jews of Israel are moving in and they are causing all the problems in the Middle East. Well, it's kind of weird because, I don't want to get into the history of all of this, but when it comes down to it, it's like, okay, so what was the reasons for Europeans coming to the Americas, and they subjugated everyone that lived in the Americas, no matter from Canada all the way down to Argentina. Where does this, if you want to say, consistency start and or end? So the cognizant dissonance is just in the fact that you believe that it's okay to move into another country, in this case, and say, okay, it's our justified right to move into this country and subjugate everybody that is in that land already, and then tell somebody else on another part of the world that, no, it's not okay for you to return to your home, even though you never left it totally. We come up with all sorts of cognizant dissonances in our everyday lives. If somebody comes knocking on your door and says, hey, can I talk to you about my religion? Most people just turn it away, or if you're searching for something, it's like, okay, tell me about it, and if it rings true with you, you believe and you go about your merry way with these people. If you're not, then you're saying, okay, challenge my beliefs, or let's have a discussion about it. But if you're stronger in your beliefs, the other person doesn't want to hear what you have to say. And it just continues going on and on and on. Let me see, because I was hoping that we would get our guest, which is Chad Meek, on the show here. And I know he came online, so he should be around somewhere. So let me see if I can find him someplace. In the meantime, hold on while I actually play something here for us, and we'll be back in roughly 2 minutes. So please stay with us.
freedomtalkradio.co.uk.
Let's go!
This is the most diverse, most amazing, one of the funniest radio stations you could ever listen to on the internet. I've heard so much stuff from the ups, the downs, the lefts, the rights.
The politics, the non-politics, the schmolitics, whatever you want to call them.
It's great.
While we wait for our guest to connect, let me remind you about our Thoughts for Growth podcast. Our Thoughts for Growth episodes are 3 to 5 minute thoughts which are inspirational, motivational, and or thought-provoking. K-Wave 6 Radio is dedicated to bringing positive programming in all that we do. Thoughts for Growth airs on Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays at 9 a.m. Eastern on Podomatic.com, iTunes, Stitcher.com, on our RSS feed, and on YouTube. Be sure to follow our blog. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook. All of our links to follow and our media players can be found at www.kwave6radio.tk. That's kwave6 with the number 6, radio.tk, or, if you prefer, www.kwave6radio.wordpress.com. Chad, are you there?
I am here.
Aha, good.
I had no number, dude. I had no idea how to get a hold of you. Sorry.
It's okay. I was hoping that you would show up because I didn't want to have to do the whole show by myself.
No problem. I called the business line, and then I was searching, and I thought, oh, my God, I have no number. So I thought, okay, well, let me backtrack. So I did the little search thing, and I finally figured it out. So here I am.
Okay, good. Yeah, I was just talking about, before I just did that little break, about cognitive dissonance, and using, I don't know if you heard it, but I was talking about what's going on with Israel, about how somebody comes over to your home and tries to convince you that you should belong to their particular denomination and or religion, and even getting into, and I was starting to get into, how cognitive dissonance also breeds disagreements, which leads to arguments. And, there's a whole lot of things. Even like Newton, everybody thinks that Newton, who discovered gravity, well, he discovered it in a scientific term, but the man was actually an alchemist, which a lot of people don't understand. What is alchemy? But it's, what we're told, what we're taught is what we understand, and where we go with that information is where it leads us either into a greater belief system or greater understanding of the world that's around us, or it holds us back. And I'm going to stop there and see where you want to take it from there.
Well, I mean, as far as the whole teaching thing, I don't believe we're taught anything that's accurate. In fact, I think that we are deliberately misled from a very early age into a certain typecast of subservient to this broader definition of, I mean, to be completely honest, and this is an honest show, to a form of insanity. We live in a world of something that is extraordinarily deceptive, and there isn't anything that we live with on a day-to-day basis that isn't nothing but deception. And so what we have to do as individuals is continually fight this deception and to get to our truth, to get past this cognitive dissonance that is basically programmed into every avenue and channel in our lives. So I can let you know how I really feel, Kirk, but there is not an institution that we are observing now that is nothing but an adulterated con game. We are being beaten out of our own legacy, our own world. Case in point, there's 1% of the wealth, 99% of the wealth is controlled by 1% of the people. How many people out there still believe that there is an American dream or that they can become a part of the 1%? Well, I got news for everyone, baby. It ain't happening. It's not going to happen, okay? Well, that is a part of this broader cognitive dissonance where people actually believe that they have a chance at either the economic world dream or the American dream, call what you may, but no one has a chance.
And
it
kind
is
of like,
yeah,
I was just going to say, it's kind of like George Carlin, who says it's called the American dream because you have to be asleep to believe it.
Right. Well, Carlin was fantastic. I love because he actually spoke his truth, and it was a very sharp individual. But if you look at, of course, going down the whole road, it is a conspiracy. It's a conspiracy, and people always wonder what Mystery Babylon is. Well, Mystery Babylon is very simple. It is a church-state program to keep the common man subservient to the ruling class, same as it always has been, and and until we embrace our own. I mean, there is a chance that we can embrace this whole concept of taking back a portion of our lives. But it's a slim chance because people are so caught up and so programmed, and they do it so well. My God, I grew up LDS. Okay, so it's taken me, just to be blunt, it's taken me probably 40 years to get over the fact that people actually masturbate. Excuse the rancor about that. Well, I was taught. Yeah, I was taught that it was a dirty, filthy thing that goes on. Well, little did I know that all the people that were preaching this to me were in fact screwing each other, okay? All the leadership were in fact having adulterous affairs, but lo and behold, I was programmed into thinking that was somehow evil. The same thing like with all the pedophilia going on within the Catholic Church. Everyone, the most elaborate and eloquent excuses I have actually heard are from people who have been sexually abused by Catholic priests that still remain in bondage with the Catholic. They have all the excuses in the world. And you call this the Stockholm Syndrome, call it what you may, but we are in fact prisoners. Most of us are prisoners. And it's because of what you mentioned is for this cognitive, of this not looking behind the curtain. We know that in the land of Oz, that the wizard is a liar, okay? But we choose to not believe our own sensibilities. And that's what allows us to get through on a day-to-day basis. And it's the most sick and sad thing that we as human beings do. And I don't care what country you're in. If you're subservient to a government, an economic system, a religious order, you are part of this cognitive dissonance. You simply, frankly, have been programmed into taking the other pill that is not reality, called red or blue. I don't care what your pill color is, but the one of disbelief is the one that you're taking. And until here's the really great thing. This is I have a real strong belief. We have the opportunity to, just like John Lennon and some of the other people, we have the opportunity to take this back. But we have to choose not to be slaves. We have to choose not to do this. Now, will we? My hope is we do.
Yeah, I hope we will too. As a matter of fact, let me just insert this real quick. The interview I did just last week with Andreas Ginnestedt, who is a sociologist, he's also an artist, and he works with NATO. and as he explains it all the time, he has an unpaid position in NATO, but NATO gave him the title of Senior Expert on Systems Theory of Violence. Now, he believes, and he hopes, he says, we can change our world. And he says, it's easy enough to do if we can just follow the simple rules that doctorates or people that are doctors in sociology and psychology, behavioral science, have all said to follow these certain ways and rules to bring about a society that actually cares for each other instead of always wanting to fight with each other. Because in our system that we have now, because people are constantly being, shall we say, opened to violence, this violence doesn't just affect you, it affects those who are around you, it affects your children, their children, and so on down the line. We even got into talking about how after World War II, just as it was ending, when Russia came to Germany, what the Russian soldiers were doing with the German women were they were raping the women. So it not only affected them, but it affected their children as they were being born. Whether or not they aborted those and had another child from a marriage or whatever the case may be, it all affected them, and it's still affecting our societies even from there. You think about it even from the Native Americans or anyone who was in the Americas before, about all the violence they had to endure, including being put off on reservations or being sequestered to some other part of the land that is not called civilized.
Yeah. Or genocide. Yeah. No, I can make the case, and this is something that, my big thing is comparative religions. And I've been doing that my whole life. I grew up with this weird religion, so I started peeling the onion back, into Christianity. First of all, if you're a part of the Lutheran or the protest religion, you're basically a follower of a madman who threw his own poop against the wall against evil spirits. Which was actually a better thing going against the Catholic Church, because he was protesting the effect of being able to pay ahead of time for sins. But you go back all the way to early Rome, and you go to the Treaty of Nicaea, and you go through all of this indoctrinated doublespeak and pure insanity, where you have, in the Old Testament, you have people saying, kill every living soul, everybody, etc., etc. And then you have all this contradiction, and between the contradiction is where they get you. And that is what has absolutely adulterated. My uncle, George Van Tassel, he had a great term. He says, everything has been adulterated. Well, certainly it has. And we know, first of all, if you go back to the early Essenes and some of the early Gnostic, before, the material Roman Catholic Church got a hold of this New Testament or New Gospel, good news, things were fairly good. And they had a great idea, but very quickly, what happens? You get into church state, and I go back to this mystery Babylon, where literally between the church and the state and government, business, everyone basically takes a share or a piece of the common man. And because the common man, just like the Native Americans, just like so many different people who don't write history, they are defenseless. We are essentially defenseless against all this. How can we fight Madison Avenue? How can we fight Wall Street? How can we fight all of these resources? I'm in a battle in Hollywood right now with my movie, Giant Rocket Movie. How do you combat all of this adulteration? It is a incredible battle. Now, most people don't know that they're in the battle. The only way you can know it is if you're out of it and you basically have been either arbitrarily rejected by it or by your own senses, by some God-given manifesto, you come to the realization that you're not that. You're not a part of this adulteration. You're not a part of this evil. Now, again, I don't want to sound evangelical or any of that kind of crap that's out there, but the reality is that's the reality. Now, I think there's an antidote in there somewhere, and I think that there is a certain positive antidote, and it may be your show. I don't know. I mean, it could be the words of people who are sensible, that there's a possibility that if there's enough people that got together, just like, in fact, Gandhi kicked out the empire, the English empire. The sun never sets, and they were able to kick all those people out by basically not being subservient to it, by not participating. Now, who do you know, materially, would say, okay, I'm not going to play anymore? And the only way that you can win is by not playing. And who's going to do that? And let me tell you something. If you want to see the big teeth, the big long knives from friends and families, you just say, one day you sit down and you say, I'm not going to play that. Now, if you had 100 people along with you that were supporting you in that endeavor, you'd have a lot better chances. Now, I'm always asking behind me. I always say, are there any heroes back there? And I'm a child, just kind of like you. We probably got on the tail end of the peace movement. You're a few years older than me, so you might have been involved in it. But it was the revolution that didn't that died, that got bought off. So now when you talk about being aware, we're saying, okay, yeah, we know the truth. We want to do something, you and I. But are there any others? And that's the big question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Actually, what I want to do right now is, if you don't mind, we're going to take a call from a caller. Do you mind taking any calls?
Sure. Let's get it in.
Okay, first of all, let me do a quick break. It'll take about 2 minutes, and then we'll come right back with our caller from Atlanta. And so stay tuned, and we will be right back in 2 minutes.
Hi, this is Duke Mayo Rockefeller. Please check out my humanitarian organization, www.livechildlive.org. You are listening to K-Wave 6 Radio with our esteemed radio host, Kirk Spencer.
Thank you for listening to today's show. We'll return to today's program shortly. Keep up with what's new at K-Wave 6 Radio by visiting our website at www.kwave6, that's the number 6, radio.tk. You can subscribe to our blog via the RSS feed button on our blog page titled What's New, or via the social media links in the website. If you missed any of our shows, you can find all of our shows archived in our YouTube channel. The link to our YouTube channel is on the homepage of our website. We also suggest that you check out the programming at Freedom Talk Radio by visiting their website at www.freedomtalkradio.co.uk. Now let's return to today's show.
Hi there. This is Chad Meek, writer and executive producer of the epic UFO thriller Giant Rock the Movie. Even if you haven't been abducted by E.T., you need to listen to the K-Wave 6 Radio Network to get the latest of the odd, the unusual, or more importantly, the fun. See you at the movies.
Before we get back into the show and we take our first call from Atlanta, Georgia, or thereabouts, Chad, you have been on the show quite a few times. You're one of my favorite people on the show. If anybody's been listening to the show, Chad is, as you just heard, he is a script writer, he is an executive producer, he is writing a book, and he is also an astrologer with over 25 years of experience. But also, Chad, tell us what else you have done besides this. You know, you were in the oil business, but tell a little bit about that just to let the people know that you're not just coming
certainly, Kurt. You know, one of the things, I'm a Native American, so I'm somewhat ashamed of some of the businesses that I used to run. I used to run international oil and gas companies and mining companies all over the world, and I used to be involved in investment banking. So I have a certain amount of experience and I have skin in the whole works. I'm not particularly proud of all of that. And it's kind of like, it's funny, I am proud of what I'm doing right now, which is, of course, is, creating a movie with a soul that might have a message. I'm proud of that. I'm proud of my intellectual property. But I've kind of been, for many, many years, I've kind of been hiding, I guess, incognito, hoping that I could, reach some other people that would want to make a meaningful change. And it's so funny. I mean, I ran into you. I don't know how I ran into you, but I ran into you, and I ran into a few other people that actually we have the symbiotic, thought process that we're trying to do something good versus trying to, exploit or hurt other people. So, but my background is in that. I made a few $1 million here and there, but that isn't who I am. I'm a Native American. I'm an astrologer. I'm a metaphysician, and what I'm trying to do right now is build an intellectual property that will actually make meaningful change through my movie and book, Giant Rock.
Okay, sounds good. Now we're going to take our first call from Atlanta, Georgia. So here we go. Welcome to the show, and who are we speaking with? Hello?
This is Naj in Atlanta. Yeah, I'm on a headset. Is that okay, or does it sound distorted?
Yeah, that's fine. It's fine. I can hear you.
Understood. Yeah, I just saw the show, saw the title, so I decided to check it out. So I just called in a few minutes ago, so I kind of have to catch up on what the conversation is.
Oh, okay. Chad, you want to go take it from there? Well, let me just say, cognitive dissonance, what we're just talking about is how we as a people, doesn't matter where in the world we are, we have certain things that we believe, certain things that we know, and when somebody presents us with other information, we tend to go defensive, which also brings about disagreements, and then it brings about arguments, because generally people don't want to actually study into something, or they just don't want their beliefs or their knowledge challenged. But there is so much out there, and instead of checking it out and seeing what it is, we prefer to sit in a corner and accept things by what we've been taught, what we've learned, whatever. As one expression goes, we don't see the world as it is, we see the world through our experiences.
Oh, okay.
Does that bring you up to...
Yeah, I think you did bring me up to speed. No, that's always a good conversation, because it's so interesting, because it's the information age. So all kinds of things are at your fingertips. You can figure it out on your phone, a laptop, whatever. You can look up things and really research. But what we find, as you said, based on the topic of this show, is people just look for things to confirm what they already believe, get extremely upset and emotional when people bring new information or disturb their thoughts. But this is nothing new. People used to do this in the old days by the way of what books they read or what magazine they subscribed to. So it's just amazing that this is still going on in 2015, that people are determined that they decided what their view of the world is, and they're determined to go to their grave with it. Ignoring all new information. So,
Yeah. Chad actually was talking about something. I'm going to get him back in here on this, is that with what we've been taught is generally just what whoever is in power wants you to know. Now, judging by the sound of your voice, if I may do so, you're not actually what I would call a spring chicken, so you've been around. So if you, I don't know if you've ever listened to someone who was much younger and possibly even still in high school or just began college. How much do they know compared to what you and I and Chad were taught just maybe 30 years ago? I mean, take a look at that. Chad, do you want to add something to that?
I think. Well, if he wants to go, I'll wait.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think they know more than we did functionally, as far as figuring out things, learning how to use new technology and new apps come out every week, new forms of using. They know more than us as far as that, or as far as figuring out how to do something. But they know less as far as being experienced with something and really getting into a topic. So take a journalist now, could use LexisNexis or Google or whatever, and they can find anything. But a reporter from the old days who had to do real investigative journalism had to get out there, talk to different people from different industries, and they'd have a more, I guess you could say a more real grasp of things. So now it's like jack of all trades, master of none. And back in the day, we kind of specialized a little more. So there's some good and some bad. But I will say though, man, the youth are. They're kind of extraordinary when it comes to certain things, man. Like you watch those kids with a tablet or something in their hands, and you'll see some phenomenal things. I used to run an after-school program, and I was kind of shocked at kids who had low reading levels but knew how to do a lot of things with tech.
Yeah, actually, before Chad comes back in, Chad, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still. Yeah, I'm just listening. Yeah, you know what? He's right. Yeah. I think from a technological point, he's absolutely correct. But when you broach subjects of, like, for instance, like the United States debt, which is $18 trillion, which is literally off the map, and that's just one portion of it. That we're not talking about the 500 to 700 trillion in derivative contracts that can come due at any time. They see, and again, and staying focused into what your show's about tonight, it means nothing to them. And one thing about I can remind people back in, because I was at one of the things I was trying to do was build renewable college in the Midwest. Is in 2008 we were within hours of going to your ATM machine and not being able to get any money. Well, all of this gets shoved under the rug, even though it's 2015, the Federal Reserve, they've printed more dollars, and et cetera, et cetera. Again, this is part of the cognitive dissonance. The same thing goes with the California water catastrophe. They are literally a year away from having no water from the tap, which actually just happened in Taiwan. It's happened in Brazil, where you turn on tap water, it doesn't come out. The same thing will happen within a year. But now, in fact, I was talking to my son, and there is no water rationing. There is, people, you can wash your car, you can take water, et cetera, neutral one. But this is the cognitive dissonance, which I think that the main theme of the show, that everyone seems to go by, thinking that it's going to either correct itself or requires no effort. And this, and if I go one more a little stretch, and I'll shut up, is one of the things too. This is the same thing with the government. We have 5 lobbyists for each congressman. We essentially have an ineffective. We have a failed state. We have things that are going on in the world that people are going to be paid severe penalties for and they have not a clue because they choose not to look at it. And I'll give it back to you, Kurt.
Well, that's okay. That's fine. I'm actually Atlanta. What's your first name? Raj. Yeah, we actually, there is a conversation that I was talking to a friend, was actually my niece this morning, who is a law student in Colorado, and right now she's holding a 3.9 GPA in her university studies. And she and I were talking about basically the same subject this morning, and she was saying that what she felt and what she sees with the students that are, well, she's in her 40s, but she's watching students that are in their 20s and whatnot, and she's saying it's cool to actually watch college-age students or university-age students that are from different religions. She's saying she notices that there are Muslims, there's Jews, there's Christians, there's other people from other religions and denominations, whatever. They're all sitting down together and having conversations. And she says, in one way, I really feel bad for them because they have to wait for the old guard, our politicians presently, to pass away before they can get in and make the changes that actually need to be done. So let me leave that open. Where do you see that going? Raj, if you want to start with that one, and let's go with that thought.
Yeah, I think that's an idealistic point of view. It says that progress always just goes upward, and that as long as the older generation dies off, the younger will come in and put things in the proper perspective. But I think the more reality-based conversation on that is systems control and keep power by bringing in new recruits, and they bring in those new recruits by the benefits that they can lay on them. So I think it's more likely that you'll find a new young guard who will do the same things that the old guard did, and they'll justify everything by the position and power and prestige that they receive from those positions. So I just don't believe in the whole when the old die off, things will get better idea. I think going back to what the gentleman was saying, there's going to take certain sacrifices, there's going to take certain tightening of the belt, but those are not popular conversations, so politicians won't have them. Locally, we're usually not willing to have them, and I think it's just wishful thinking to think that the young are going to do better than the older.
Chad, what do you think?
I think he's absolutely right. I think it's a waste of time. I think that essentially what we have a systemic disease, okay, that literally, essentially it's like the board. They basically assimilate and they change people. You can go from watch Fox News, or the board. As far as what's going on there, you can bring in people like Mark Rubio out of Florida, who are these ultra-conservatives, or this, they seem to indoctrinate because they pander, because they're politicians, they pander to a certain base that will give them money and that will get them elected. That is their business to do that. And until we basically take a flamethrower to all of this systemic nonsense that perpetuates this stuff, we'll never get anywhere. We'll basically be the same thing. In fact, it'll get worse until essentially, I'll tell you what happens. When the cradle breaks, all of these, politicians, we're not going to be able to find them. They're going to disappear. They're going to say, oh, well, we tried our best. And I get livid when I think about some of these people, and again, it's in part the problem of, and it's not just them, it's all part of this whole system that literally dummies up people, makes, it's divisive, instead of basically coming together and creating solutions. Everything, I don't care if you watch TV, You got 50,000 negative messages going through your brain every day, okay, telling you what you don't have, trying to divide you of the haves and have-nots. So there has to be something extraordinary, and my guess is it'll probably come in more of a geophysical way, where it literally, now, trust me, I would rather be on the side of this consciousness where we say, hey, listen, we are all one, we're all part of this, global world, and forget the religious factions. And I know this sounds naive, but forget all that nonsense and literally just come together and work through these solutions. But I don't see that happening. And unless, now, if we had 100 people that literally were on the same path and could actually develop a certain level of consciousness, I actually believe that whatever we wanted to change, we probably could do it. Because, by virtue of multiplication. Call me naive, call me idealistic, but you need to have that. But the problem is that trying to get 10 people together, trying to get 20 people together on the same page, it's extraordinary. So I, in fact, say, listen, until this, I guess the satellites come down, until we are actually forced into working with our neighbor, I don't really foresee any great change unless we can get somebody who can. And we've had close calls. For instance, even regardless of your beliefs, Dr. Martin Luther King, he was doing quite well. Of course, he was killed. John F. Kennedy, he literally had got the picture. Robert F. Kennedy, and then we ended up with Nixon. And it almost goes back, it's almost biblical, getting back to the Sadducees and Pharisees and having somebody Christ-like pop up was a new idea. The long knives come out, and they want to squelch that in a New York minute. But we've got to do something about that.
So, between the two of you, let me ask you this. There is something I just learned not too long ago, and I'm not going to give too much of the details because I want to check it out. But there is a story from history. It's a true story so far. Until I check it out, I'm not going to say too much more about that. But there is a group of people that were saying that for things to get better in the world, the world would be predominantly good, or it would be predominantly evil. In other words, the lack of goodness. And to bring about this change, it would have to be one or the other. But as you said, Chad, try to get 20 people together and try to get things to be good, because everybody's got a different idea of what good is. So this group of people have gotten together to make the world as evil and as bad as it can to effectuate the change. So
that's the Iranian. There's something to that, because the Iranian people, that's what they're part of their religion. That's what they want to do. They want to create so much evil and havoc that a second coming, and I don't know whether exactly precisely what they mean by it, that it actually arises out of this evil type thing. I've heard that too. So I think it's a bad idea. I mean, we're all adults. Why don't we just basically say, hey, here's an example, and listen, and please, this is, and don't take this the wrong way. I was on my balcony and I saw a guy walk in crutches down a dirt road. Okay, and as I'm watching him walk with crutches because he has a bad foot, I decide today to get in my truck and go and come up with an excuse because I need to get some stuff done in town. But it precipitated me to basically go forward and drive by him and pick him up and take him down the road. Okay, now call me insane, okay? And I don't do this regularly because of, fear, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But that's one thing that I did. Now, and I was thinking about this. What if everyone did something like that? And what if that continued? And your K-Wave 6 is really about, doing good, doing better. What if some just small things? Really, it might have taken 50 cents worth of gasoline to do that, and a lot of courage, because you never know. You always think, well, somebody's gonna, rob me. I felt good because I was on crutches and I could watch him a little while, so maybe that's not a good example. But at any rate, what if everyone did that?
Yeah. Well, yeah, but you're getting on that thing of people live by fear in looking at what possible bad could happen instead of what possible good could come out of it. But that's basically, as we're talking about human nature and cognitive dissonance, which is we have a belief that in our society there is more evil people out there that would be willing to accept what we're offering and then take more, instead of just going, they might just say thank you and give you a blessing of some sort, whether it be money or just thank you and bless you, hope everything works well with your life, so on and so forth.
It's funny. You're right. You're right. But here's try producing a movie in Hollywood. And if you want to find out the most evil people, and I've been in probably some of the most evil businesses you could ever be in, including investment banking and mining and oil. I won't divert from the main thing. But some of the more evil people I've ever ran into are in Hollywood. And on the entertainment side. And not goodwill, ill will. And it's actually evident by the shows that we're actually seeing come out of there. We don't see a lot of goodwill. We're not seeing these motifs or anything demonstrating a lot of goodwill. It always seems to be a major evil bent. And I think that visual is really not good. And the same thing with video games, where you're sitting there killing people. In fact, the latest, the one big movie that came out that Clint Eastwood directed, and about the sharpshooter in Iraq. I refuse to see that movie, because I don't want to see a movie where they glorify somebody who's killed 150, 250 people. I don't care. I don't look at that as something I want to see. Yeah, exactly. But a lot of people saw that movie.
Yeah. Raj, you got quiet over there. You have something you'd like to add to us?
Oh, I'm still here. But I think it's just basically changing the mind frame of people under the two bedrock terms of justice and fairness. Once you get that established as a norm, you can get people to start to think beyond the profit margin and start thinking, okay, how will this affect the people in the area? How will this affect humanity? And if you can change that sort of thinking, then you can start to really decide, okay, now there's an incentive to be good. Now people in positions of power have an incentive to be good. So I don't look at things as, okay, there's evil people and there's good people, and evil has a huge population. I don't think evil has a huge population, and I think that's why evil has to hide most of the things that they do, and kind of use different terms and go Orwellian on us as far as for word usage for the things that they do. So I don't think evil is acceptable to most humans as far as just their overall sense of what justice is. So I think we just have to change that part of how we think, and then, like I said, once that has an incentive, then you can start changing the structures, and then humans start to change. But right now, it's dog eat dog. People are going to do what they have to do, and they will use language to hide deplorable acts. So we have to figure out not only how we get citizens on the same page and work towards their own benefit and not the benefit of a small few, but to understand that justice and fairness are the only way we continue as a species, because dog eat dog, eventually the empire falls. And if you look throughout history, that's happened every time. We don't have an everlasting empire, nowhere on the globe. Everyone has eventually failed.
Yeah, amen. One thing, the cognitive dissonance thing, and I'll keep on harping it. We've had two. We've had. What's his name? We had Brian Williams. A major leader in our whole news group. Talk about cognitive dissonance. He had forgot that he was in the other helicopter wasn't shot at, and this other jerk on Fox News. He claims, his claims are just so ridiculous, where he's caught in this lies, but his numbers go up, and so what one of the problems is that we have people in very high positions that are basically they're so far from the truth, even in their own, they actually believe, that they were in these. I forget what's the one guy's name? I keep forgetting his name of Fox News, Mr.
Bill O'Reilly.
Talking about the Falklands.
Bill O'Reilly.
Right.
He said, I told my mother I saw people, nuns killed in front of me. Well, he didn't. And then he said he was in the Falkland Wars. Well, I mean, and they catch him in these lies. But here's the danger part about it. You've got these people listening to Fox News, which what they are is, really what they are is anti-Obama or anti-whatever, that listen and adhere to this thing, and whatever they feed them, we've got this whole population of people that believe them and actually embrace this kind of stuff. The mechanism, to change this is something I don't know what to do with, other than, how can we do something meaningful to stop this kind of thing from growing? But it's a big spore. It's already grown. And my battle is through media, through film, is to show, some sort of a semblance of moral integrity, people who make mistakes, people who can rise above them, and in the end get better and teach a lesson. Well, what do we learn from these people in the media, especially in the news media, which we used to be able to trust before the corporate world absorbed them? So now you can't even trust anything that you see on television. So so it's not that it's not that I fault young people. They have been programmed and literally have become dummied down so much that they don't care. I don't know what the antidote is. I'm hoping that you two gentlemen obviously have a broader view. I myself do, and every chance I get and everything I do is geared towards making people aware of trying to do the moral or the right thing. Whereas the examples of what we see vis-a-vis Donald Trump, Bill O'Reilly, all of these, really, they're cartoon characters is what they are. But the scary part about it is people aren't seeing them as such. And so how do we, and I guess the question, what is the antidote? My antidote is making a movie. Hopefully 50 to 100 million people see the movie, and they'll see how people basically move forward, with their challenges without selling their souls, as an antidote to Donald Trump, Bill O'Reilly, Brian Williams, even Obama. Obama is, I'm not an Obama fan, so to speak, but I'm just saying all these people of examples in powerful leadership positions. What can we tell people? What can we tell the younger people coming behind us?
Actually, this is something I'm going to get into in just a moment, but let me just add in here, welcome to K-Wave 6 Radio. We have opened the chat and the voice lines. If you want to call in, the number is area code 347-677-0812. Once again, in the Americas, is 347-677-0812. If you want to call in by Skype, go to the Blog Talk Radio page and click on the Skype icon and follow the icons to get, or the prompts that you get to call into the show. If you're in our show and you just want to chat, you can type in your message and we'll take it from there. Now, as you guys were talking, I wrote down a question here, and I'm going to leave it open to whoever wants to answer first. People hold on to beliefs, and people have so many different beliefs which is best. What's the best way to go to have a better world, so on and so forth. And they go from, let's just drop the bomb and let's start all over again, to the Bill O'Reillys and the Hannitys and whoever else is out there talking their stuff. But very few people want to listen. There's very few people even want to reason. So how do we get people to sit down, to discuss, to reason, and basically come up with something that will work? How do we do that?
Well, I think that starts early on with putting more emphasis on critical thinking skills as opposed to memorizing dates and memorizing certain events, because then you not only don't actually know the topic, you don't know how to get into the meat of the topic and figure out something else that nobody's ever figured out. And all of us have this because we have our own unique perspective. But if you have the skill of critical thinking, there's no telling where the information will take you. So it's kind of an emphasis more on critical thinking. So if you're on the left and you're watching MSNBC, you should be writing down the things they were correct on and writing down the things they were incorrect on. Then do the same thing to Fox. And then you can start to figure out that all of these people don't have your best interest at heart. And you'll understand that it's just, these are echo chambers who are bought off by corporate interests. And you need to be worried about more important things, and also that's not where you're going to get your good information. And we're somewhat of an immature population, and I don't mean it as far as number. I just mean it as far as how we think. So we have to take it back to a toddler sense of looking at things. What does a toddler always ask you? Why? So that's something that adults need to indulge themselves into more. Whatever your most trusted news source is, still why, how? Those simple questions, and then you start to figure things out on your own. Once you ask those questions and start researching their answers, and that's what it's going to take. It's going to take real work, real study, and real research. The answers are not going to be given to you by the people whose interest it is to keep things as they are.
I think it sounds good. Yeah, I think sounds good. I think really, and this is a slippery slope. There's got to be divestiture. People like Warren Buffett and Bill Gates and all of these people that control all of this wealth and pull all these strings, we need to go get the resources, not only the actual resources from them. We need to eliminate the influence and the power that they have. I've often thought, here's an example. Why are we paying? Why are people paying? Real simply, why are people buying car insurance? Why does the automakers pay for a continual medical bond for as long as you drive a car? And why don't in order to allow for a car to come out and be in the why don't they pay $1,000? And so whoever buys that car never has to worry about medical insurance and be subject to usury and subject to all the other things, various insurance. Why are there so many banks with all these various fees when essentially, and even with all the utilities of the internet and all the communication, why are we continually paying for this stuff? Shouldn't there be some utility for the people to basically participate in this stuff? It's already been well paid for. So, until we get this money back or capture this money back, we're not going to be in any position to dictate any of the terms vis-a-vis in the news media or anywhere else. So why are we not getting, why isn't that being discussed? And that it always comes down to material resources. But it's radical, and I know it. But having said that, what is the other solution? If we can sit there and talk about this stuff, but the real power brokers are the people that are controlling all the strings, and they are, until that subsides, our politicians, our way of life, it's all over.
Mm-hmm. Let me get into something else. I like to ask more questions than I like to give answers, but let me ask you this. Now, I have a friend who, he's been on the show quite a few times. He's kind of like my brother from another mother, and he goes by the nickname of Stash. He and another friend of ours, Troy, they're involved in trying to change the government or trying to get it back to what it was originally designed to be back in the States. And they've come up with a lot of information, which I don't get into a lot because I don't live in country anymore. But as he put it, he says, if you were to actually read the documents you signed to get a license plate for your car, even though you have bought the car, now you have registered it with the state. Now it belongs to the state, so you actually are paying for a car that is owned by the state just by registering it with the state. When they're only supposed to do such a thing like that when you are doing this for commercial use. In other words, you're supposed to have a driver's license to drive for commercial use, not just as a person who's traveling from point A to point B and not charging anyone for driving, including yourself or your family, whatever the case may be. So, with all of this, and you're talking about, Raj, about studying. Now, people, I'm talking about generalizations as people. We tend to be lazy. We tend not to want to read. And this is where the cognitive dissonance comes in, is that people want to believe that, yes, you have to register your car, yes, you have to do this, yes, you have to do that, but they have not studied it. And you come up and present this and saying, if you just read this, you will see what I'm telling you is true and correct. Now, without getting into too much into that, let's use something that somebody posted last year when this Malaysian flight disappeared. And I like this little saying, and I'm not going to say every word because there's a few foul words, and I still want to keep the show G-rated as much as possible. It says, we have submarines that can find a barnacle on a turtle's ass, aircraft that can hunt down a submarine, and indestructible black boxes linked to satellites. Wake up, numbnuts, you're being distracted. Jetliners just don't disappear in 2014. Now, one more thing I'm going to throw in here. Well, go ahead. I have one more thing, but I'm going to put it in there later after you say what you want to say. Go ahead. Well, okay.
Oh, okay. Well, I was just going to...
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I'm in agreement with what the gentleman said as far as that statement. But as far as the card thing, I don't think it's a thing of laziness. I think it's more a thing of what benefits you derive from whatever action. So if you say, okay, I'm going to fight this whole DMV situation and this whole registering card situation, will I be able to drive during my fight, and will I be able to be left alone? So at a certain point, we're kind of punished for looking for solutions and fighting against the state in a certain sense. And people see the easier option is always to go along and get whatever benefit it is. And in this benefit, you're talking about the ability to drive a car, which determines how much or where people can work and, running errands and just living their life. So I think that's where the problem lies. If there's benefits to being a person who's questioning everything and trying to make sure that the government is up to speed on all things and checking them on everything they're doing, if there's benefits to it, then I think you'll get more people involved in it. But as of now, to where you make somebody a lone wolf guy fighting against something and he's being punished by not having that ability, it makes it it's not a popular thing.
Yeah, and that's the point. It's popularity, and that's where we're talking about cognitive dissonance. Okay, like I was about to say, the thing is, now I'm not a scientist, but I have read a lot. I've got a lot of experiences. And let's just go back to September 11th, 2001, when the Twin Towers came down. And there has been a lot of college professors. There have been people that were involved in controlled demolitions, and they all said on the record, and you can still find some of them on YouTube, that the Twin Towers were actually destroyed by controlled demolition, even from the point of seeing the thermalite, which was burning the steel. Because if you know, jet fuel is nothing more than kerosene, which only burns at 500 degrees, give or take a few hundred degrees either side of that. But it takes over 2,000 degrees to melt steel. Okay? So I've heard this from the beginning where people said, oh no, our government wouldn't do that to us. No, it would not destroy us. It would not do this. It would not do that. And I just go back to World War II when it was talking about how the U.S. knew that the Japanese were coming into Pearl Harbor, and they said the only way that we could get involved in this world war is to let it happen, because at that time, during the 30s, we were 20s and 30s after World War II, we did not want to be involved in any more wars. No, forget it. We don't want to involve it. I don't care what's going on. But the only way to get anybody involved is attack us, let them attack us, and then we will go into our, if you will, holy rage of, you did what? Oh, no, okay, now we're going to come over and we're going to spank your bottom, okay? So that's where we're talking about the cognitive dissonance, is that the facts are right in front of you, but we don't want to acknowledge them because it goes against our brain to believe that this could never happen. So that's where I'm kind of going with this cognitive dissonance.
Certainly, but it goes back even further. Granted, those are more.
Remember the name.
Right, remember the name. Or the Tonkin Bay, Vietnam. Tonkin Bay was a charade.
Right.
There was no attack. Yeah, it's endless as far as we've been in a perpetual state of war. If you want to go back to, say, 1913, the Federal Reserve Act, it was never ratified by all the states. It had to be, but it obviously wasn't. So therefore, we have a Federal Reserve, which is actually where we're at right now. What we have is a thing of custom over law. We talk about being a nation of law, and we talk about a Supreme Court, the open. Well, every institution has broken down through the ages. And I'll tell you one, I'm a Cherokee Native. I've got a federal card. But essentially, the Cherokee Nation won every court case against the United States. Every single one. Up to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court said, Andrew Jackson, you're wrong. Andrew Jackson, what did he say? President of the United States says, well, they have their judgment, now try to enforce it. So we live in this world, and don't get me started with the Nixonian and the Bushes and et cetera, et cetera. What we need is a complete overhaul. One of the things in our Constitution is laughable. It is laughable. It has lost its meaning probably 150 years ago. People want to stand back and say, oh, yeah, we have these rights. We have no rights. You have the right to remain silent, even if that. So essentially, we need to get back into something completely different. Like, they laugh at this stuff. Another issue, UFOs. Every astronaut has come back and have actually mentioned bases on the moon. People have mentioned UFOs. every single one of them. And do you think that we can get any kind of collective or disclosure out of our own government on this stuff? It becomes, it's tiered off. And literally, the enemy is, in fact, our own government that is doing these things and deceiving everyone here. I don't know what it's going to take to basically to get back these things. Perhaps we need to maybe move Washington, D.C. to the middle of Nevada. I don't know. We've got to somehow get this government back. But until we do, 9/11, it could be 10/11, it could be 2020, et cetera, it doesn't matter. We are essentially powerless with this ultimate force. It's kind of like a driver's license. We don't need driver's license. What a joke. I mean, a license to be married, a license to go to worship. Well, if you want to get a tax write-off, then your church has to have a federal tax ID number so you can write off the amount of gift. We are literally powerless. What has happened is this thing has grown to such a point that literally it has touched every part of this. And until we overthrow this gigantic thing, a noose around our neck, it's laughable. I mean, we're just going to be sitting by waiting for a drone to hit us. I don't want to be negative, but there's the practical application of protest. The individual lone wolf, forget it. The only thing we can do is get as many people together and literally just stop it, and until we can get control of it. If we don't, then the conversation we'll be having the same discussion 5 years now about the Twin Towers in Manhattan or in Baltimore or in Miami or some other false flag, because they absolutely are necessary for the government to basically be in existence. That's how they rationalize their existence.
Yeah.
Raj?
Yeah. I mean, all of that is interesting. Both perspectives that you guys brought on that are interesting. I think it's a thing of looking at it like, okay, if you're eating a whale, you have to eat it piece by piece. You can't decide you're going to eat the whole whale. So you're not going to see how it's going to go in the long run. We just have to figure out small solutions that we can start on, and you have to understand that you have to have the faith in the next generation to carry on whatever you started. And my point in this is 9/11 is what it is. We all think what we think, but they've already won on that issue. To even turn around the minds of enough Americans to make a dent in that is going to take so much time and effort that could have been spent elsewhere and dealing with things that we're dealing with in the now. So with 9/11, I always kind of stay silent on it because I feel like we can't fight the battles they've already won. So if you're a general and you're looking at the battlefield, of course, you're like, look, this is the perfect thing. This is perfect evidence. We can prove it. We can show it. But if you can't win on that issue, and I don't think that we can, because I think enough Americans have been kind of hoodwinked into a certain perspective, that we have to look at other issues outside of it, because I just don't think it's winnable at this point.
No, we can't.
You should see the emotion from people when you bring that up.
Right. No, they've got it. No, they won it. In fact, what everyone believed, cognitive dissonance, again, everyone believed that it was Saddam that ran those. Everybody believed that. The nation believed, and they had their blueprint already built. We lost it. And so what had happened? The bankers put another $2 or $3 trillion worth of debt for our progenies, for the next generations. So now, essentially, which started off as benign, income tax was 5%. Now we've lost 50%. So it continues.
Right.
Yeah. So you're right. No, we've lost that.
And to go back to his point on Pearl Harbor, those who are in the know, like they have an understanding that, look, Japan doesn't have many oil-producing areas outside of, the island because they don't really produce anything. So they needed access to those islands over there in the Pacific. We stopped them from getting access to those islands knowing that it would produce a certain effect from them and a certain reaction from them. Then we got the reaction, and now you have your excuse for war. Like, this is a game that's been played out by our government and many other governments throughout history. This is nothing new. But if you don't get people to that point of understanding that not only should you be suspicious of government and big business, but that you should question all forms of power, all things that come to you. Until we can get people there, we don't have enough of a population to push back on things and stop them in their tracks. But we're making progress. We're doing a lot better than what we used to do. We used to blindly follow some amazing stories from our government.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, this is exactly what I'm talking about. We have about 8 minutes to go before we close the show. But just before we close, I'm going to give everybody time to say something else. But, Raj, what you're talking about, I agree. And what I'm talking about, the cognitive dissonance, is that we need to learn from our past. Yes, 9/11 is gone. World War II is gone. The Bay of Tonkin, it's gone. All of these things, they're past. They're something that we cannot bring up. But did we learn anything from them, or are we doomed to repeat them? I forgot who made the quote, but he says, unless we learn our lessons from history, we're doomed to repeat them over and over and over again. And actually, I have a saying. I'll say it now. I remember this quote, and I don't remember who said it. And it says, I have seen or I have met the enemy, and the enemy is us. The enemy is us because we can't seem to agree, because everybody has their opinion, and nobody wants to listen. Nobody wants to reason. Nobody wants to discuss. And what I'm hearing from both Raj and Chad here is, we do need to understand, we do need to study, and we do need discussions, conversations. We need to reason out our future to find out, or reason out our past to find out what are we going to do in the future. So with that, I'm going to leave you guys to give your closing remarks. You got about 6 minutes, so hopefully you give each other, equal time.
Well, I'll just be real quick, and I'll let the main guest of the show, close it. And I'll just say I agree with everything you just said right now. This is a process, and this is not something that's going to be fixed with just, the wave of the hand or our own egos getting so blown out of proportion that we think we have to be the generation that saves everything and fixes everything. It's like, no, just do your part to the point to where you can look in the mirror and know that you did enough as a citizen, as a global citizen, as far as in this fight against the elites. And going back to your other point, right, history repeats itself because the elites' playbook is not that thick. It's the same old games, same old situations, but they keep playing it out on populations who aren't aware. But you get an aware population, and then you start to see them concede, then you start to see them give ground. So the question is, how far can we push them this generation and lead the next generation to push back even further and further and further? And, that's what it is, man. This is life. You only got one. You don't want to become a hermit who's not happy with his life and can't connect with people, but you also don't want to be a person who's unwilling to look around and see all the wrong going on and not do anything about it.
Exactly.
You agree? Chad? Yeah, I agree. Yeah. No, I think the caller basically has hit a lot of real practical ideas. I think that if you look at this in a broader, multi-generational, I hope we have the time. I look at the same time. The reason why everything begins with the word, and I don't care whether it's a biblical word or a written word or whatever. Everything it revolves around the word or the vision. What's become the new books has been media, or the new books are in fact film with a broader reach, and that's been my goal all along, is to try to do some remedial type, control or an antidote or something different than Iron Man or Superman or Megatron or all this stuff, and so we're seeing a couple of things that are very interesting happening with that. So perhaps maybe we're on the right track, but this is really where the battle is. We're dealing with the hearts and minds of future generations, and it's not a nice battle. I mean, this is something. This is the most insidious war that is going on, and if people don't realize it as such, then we're going to lose because we don't have the resources that these other insidious and unequivocal, just pure bastards have. And so we need to do something. My hope is by making people aware. Carl Jung says awareness brings change. I hope people get sick and tired of seeing all diminishing returns on everything. There's no listener out there that every year it's getting progressively worse. I don't know of anybody whose life is getting progressively better in this current way of being. So we definitely need this philosophical renaissance, and it's a tough battle. It's not something that they're just going to lay down. No, they're too vested. So we need to wake up.
Yep. Pure
and simple.
Right.
Yeah, I have as closing remarks here, real quick.
Go ahead.
This is a part one of cognitive dissonance. Raj, I really am glad that you showed up. I don't know you, but I'm hoping to get to know you. I hope you'll be on our following shows. Follow us on our blog. If you want to send me an email, you can just go to the website and send me an email straight from there, straight from your email box, or you can just fill out the form and send me some stuff there. Please follow the show. Thursday, I'm doing a podcast with my dear friend over in Germany, Andreas Ginnestedt, who works with NATO. He's going to give some information that you may be surprised at. I did a question with him after the show, and he's going to tell us something about what's going on in the U.S. military as well as NATO. And basically, as he said it, they're playing a double game right now, and he's going to lay it out for us. But for all the other listeners out there, I hope that you will be with us on the next show. We're just going to keep it at an hour and a half unless we get a lot of people that call in. But this is, like I said, this is part one. Chad, I'm glad you're here as always. There's some points that I wanted to bring out, but we'll bring them out on the next show, and we'll see how that goes. Raj, once again, thanks for being here. And for all of our listeners, thank you for being here and listening, whether you're listening live or on the archives. You can find the show here on this link. And on Friday, give or take a day or so, we will be putting this up in our YouTube archives. So for everyone who's been here, thank you and be well. And we'll see you again in another future show. Oh, yeah, be sure to follow the blog. We have more information coming there about future shows, both live and on podcast. Until then, take care and be well. Thank you for being a part of our listening audience. Be sure to keep up with our shows and our podcast via our blog, on Twitter, and in Facebook. All links, including our RSS feed, are available at kwave6radio.tk. That's kwave6, the number 6, radio.tk. All the best.